Yeah, I asked Cousins, it's a lob, training camp question. What are you working on? What part of your game are you working on this year? And, some guys have answers, some don't. He had a good one. I wrote it down, pen and paper, old school. I need to be a better quarterback off schedule when the pocket breaks down. And then he talked about how he feels like he has been good on like keepers and bootlegs and stuff, and so he hopes that can translate. So, he feels like he's still a little bit of a work in progress in some key areas, but he's in a great spot. I mean, the receivers
Absolutely.
he's got. Dalvin Cook is going to be very exciting in the run game. The thing to watch there, and it was a factor for Cousins last year in Washington, is offensive line health. They have had some injuries on that line so far in training camp, and that's not good. His entire line in Washington fell apart last year. They were bringing guys in off the street to play offensive line at the end of the year last year. So if that falls apart, we saw in Minnesota 2 years ago what effect that had on Sam Bradford and their season. But that's what. But Cousins is in a good spot otherwise.
I think the Kirk Cousins thing is crazy to me because when have we had a huge free agent quarterback transition or change and somebody says, he's okay. You know what I mean?
The problem is they never get to it. Like,
right.
You lock
No,
on
that's
Peyton
what I'm saying.
Manning,
But we get it. And when you hear Dan talk about it, and even Kirk Cousins talk about it, it's not that excitement, right? We haven't been talking about this move as this is the move that gets a team that was one game away from the Super Bowl to the Super Bowl. Even when Dan went to explaining what's so great about being a Minnesota Viking, it's not Kirk Cousins. It is Dalvin Cook trying to come back healthy. It is Thielen on the outside, Diggs on the outside, having some of these weapons, but it's not necessarily what you normally get when you get a guy who's been a Pro Bowler. Who's a starter?
Well, I think, though, the answer is, like, despite the money is because these guys don't become available. I don't think anybody here is calling him a top 10 quarterback. Like, I'm always fascinated by the quarterbacks that we like, but the teams move on from. Like, people like Tyrod Taylor. The Bills made a decision to move on from him. Is that because the Bills are stupid? Maybe. Some would say that. The same thing with the Chiefs. Alex Smith was pretty good, but not good enough to go with an unproven guy. And Cousins, Washington, part of it, I got annoyed with how they played out the contracts publicly and would try to mislead us like we were morons and couldn't figure out what they were doing. But at the same time, like, they just didn't really feel comfortable giving them all that kind of money.
Right.
So, like, there's this group of quarterbacks. I always wonder, are the teams just collectively this stupid, or are they telling us something about these guys?
Well, and that's my feeling on Kirk, who I like, who I've been around, who I've played with, was a teammate. But that's the thing. You're talking about a team that was one game away, lost to the eventual Super Bowl champions, and you get a new quarterback. You give him 84 guaranteed. And we're not, and even though they're being picked by a lot of people to be at the top power rankings, it's not because of the quarterback. It's because of the rest of the team, and that's different for me.
Monster defense. I mean, there's no reason to think there'll be any slip there in terms of the defense. If anything, better maybe with Sheldon Richardson up front. But that's the thing. Quarterback total is a very subjective evaluation. It does differ from team to team. And they did change coordinators there. And maybe they thought, Case Keenum's never going to be as good as he was last year again. This guy has more upside. He can do more of the things we want to do. It'll be very interesting to see what John DeFilippo is putting in terms of offense.